Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the SpaceX Falcon 9 launch. I almost said Falcon Heavy after all the excitement from last time. So we're here today. Good morning. It's a beautiful Wednesday morning here in Rochester, New York. We're actually seeing some great weather right now. It's going to be almost 70 degrees today, which in February is pretty unusual for Rochester, New York. So pretty happy about that. Pumped. It's a nice sunny day. But I'm not sure if we're going to get a launch today. Last we heard a few minutes ago, they were waiting on weather balloon data. Hey, the weather balloons. Waiting on the weather balloon data to find out if they're going to be able to launch today. They had an upper level winds constraint. The winds were at 101.8% of what the winds, the allowable winds are. So it's just over the allowable winds. They are still proceeding with fueling for the Falcon 9 at Vandenberg Air Force Base. This is a West Coast launch today. So they're proceeding with fueling, and I guess the expectation there is maybe the winds will subside and we will still be able to launch. This is today a instantaneous launch window. So today's launch is at 9:17 a.m. Eastern Time. That's 6:17 a.m. on the West Coast. And it's an instantaneous window. This is intended to be a polar orbit, which typically polar orbits are instantaneous because as the Earth is rotating, they have to hit a very specific corridor in order to get that satellite that they're trying to put up into space at the right inclination. So this is a sun-synchronous polar orbit and instantaneous launch window. So there's no room for holds today. If the winds do exceed those upper level wind constraints, then there will be no launch today, and they'll scrub it until tomorrow is the backup window. I believe it's the same time. I didn't check to see the time for tomorrow, but I believe it's the same time, another early morning launch window. So I'm hoping they launch today because we would be in for a spectacular sight. Hopefully, this is kind of the same time frame as the Zuma launch, or the Zuma satellite from a few weeks back. That got everybody panicked. Everybody thought there was a UFO flying through the sky because you saw the huge exhaust plume that was shining in the sunlight while the surface was still in darkness, and the rocket had reached sunlight there, and it freaked a lot of people on the West Coast out. So hopefully we should have a launch today, because it would be a beautiful view. It'd hopefully be a good look to it, but same time tomorrow if they don't go. So I still have yet to hear whether or not that's going to happen, but let's see. We got a lot of comments flowing in. Let's see what everybody's saying here today. A lot of Space Lobsters on YouTube. I love it. The Space Lobster is still going. Let's see. What else we got? Andrew, Rebecca on YouTube. How's everybody doing? Good to see you. Did you notice the edit SpaceX did on the stream after you live stream them? Yeah, so SpaceX, what he's talking about on the Falcon Heavy, when we were launching live, the two bottom screens, they showed the same boosters on both views, and afterwards they edited the stream. I'm not exactly sure how they did that, but they edited the stream or somehow overlaid more content to get the two different boosters shown from the Falcon Heavy footage. But I did see that. Always excited about Falcon Heavy launches. Yes, me as well. Or I'm sorry, Falcon 9 launches. Let's see, fairing 2.0. Yep, we're going to talk about that here in just a minute, but this is using a new fairing, payload fairing for today's launch. Let's see, early morning launches are crazy. Yeah, I really like that. You get a unique view, the darkness as it lifts off, and then you see the sunlight get to shine on the exhaust plume. So you should get a really cool view of that. Let's see, just hopping into bed. Must be somebody around the world. Must be check. Just working on my high-altitude balloon payload. Oh, yeah, I think we're getting a lot of high-altitude balloon work this morning from the SpaceX team, or the team supporting SpaceX, rather. I'm still waiting on news from that last balloon launch. We were supposed to get news back at 8:52. That was about 9 minutes ago now, and I still haven't heard anything yet, so waiting on that. Let's see, Lila watching from Florida. Good to see you. Thanks for joining us today. What time is the launch? 9:17 is what we're targeting. That's Eastern time, so it'll be 6:17 on the West Coast. Doug says, wait, polar orbit? Why do the polar bears get internet before me? I'm outraged. Yeah, the polar bears are going to get their internet first. So they're getting lightning fast speed for the polar bears, not us yet. But so let's talk about today's payload. There's a primary payload and a secondary payload. And here, before we get too far and before I get distracted here, let me throw the I'll throw the SpaceX. There we go. Throw the SpaceX stream up here in the corner just in case it comes on. Here, we don't need the music there. Get rid of that. Okay. Throw that up there in the corner so in case it starts and I'm talking away, I might notice it. So there's two payloads today. There's a primary payload and a secondary payload. The primary payload is the PAZ satellite for Spain. It's a communications satellite, but surprisingly, it's not, or I guess unsurprisingly, it's not really getting most of the attention. But the satellite it's got advanced radar equipment. There's a whole bunch of technical information about but it's for the government of Spain. And I don't know what I want to tell you about it. Yeah, there's a whole bunch. I guess we could get into a whole bunch of the radars and things like that they have on there. There's a bunch of technical details. I don't know if I necessarily want to get too far into that and bore everybody, because really the one that everybody's excited about is the Starlink satellites or the Microsats. The Microsat 2A and 2B, they are demonstration payloads. These are secondary payloads, so they're not actually the primary mission, but they're secondary payloads that are hitching a ride on the Falcon 9. These are going to be SpaceX's own satellites that they're intending to put into orbit as a worldwide broadband service, which I'm super excited about as somebody that is always struggling for broadband speed here in Rochester. I would love to have an alternative to our local internet service provider, which we don't really have. So SpaceX is putting up these two demo payloads. The Starlink constellation, if you will, is going to be comprised of at least there's two numbers that get thrown out there, and I think they're two different radar or two different radio bands that they're going to be using. But the initial set is about 4,500. I think it's like 4,400 and change, but 4,500 satellites. So there's a huge number of satellites that they'll be putting up into orbit that will cover the globe in this broadband service. And one of the things that's unique, I mean, broadband service by satellite is not unusual, but what is unusual is how close these will be to Earth. So a lot of the broadband services that we have by satellite right now, they are very far away, and the latency is very high, so you can't really get high-speed internet from these service providers. You can get, decent internet service, especially if you're in the middle of nowhere and that's all you got. Satellite internet service provider is still a viable option, but the unique thing about the Starlink constellation is that it's going to be very close to Earth and reduce that latency speed so that you can actually get high-speed internet service. So that's kind of the unique thing about the Starlink satellite. And then somebody had also mentioned Fairing 2.0. That's another new piece for today, specifically about SpaceX and their launch vehicle today. So they're using a new fairing, new payload fairing. We can throw this up here on the screen here. There we go. So this is our new payload fairing on the right side there, the one that says PAZ. So a little bit bigger, a little different size range on it. This is, and one of the things that they're going to be focusing on today is they're going to be looking to recover this. So they've experimented with this in the past, and they're really trying to hone in on the whole reusability factor here by recovering as much as they can. And today was the first time that we saw the Mr. Steven boat, or I guess a couple days ago, was the first time that we saw the Mr. Steven boat. And the Mr. Steven boat is like a big catcher's mitt. with a big net on top like this, and it's designed to catch the payload fairing as it comes down, as it re-enters. So they jettison the payload fairing to save weight. It starts to re-enter the Earth's atmosphere, and then it's going to go under parachute. And it's actually been pretty complicated for them to try to manage the payload coming down under parachute like this, because it's the payload fairing is not the most aerodynamic piece of equipment after it's been jettisoned. It's kind of just this big hunk of metal. So that's what they are looking at. So well, the sad news for today, it looks like SpaceX is going to be standing down. So just finally got word from that last weather balloon data. They are going to scrub the mission today. So that's unfortunate. They're going to scrub the mission for today due to upper level winds. So no SpaceX launch today. We'll still talk about it a little bit here, but unfortunately, yeah, it looks like a couple people throwing in the comments here. Yeah, it looks like it is going to be a scrub today. So no SpaceX launch. Sad face. But we can still talk for a little while here and hang out since we got this whole thing started. But I did want to comment on a couple other things that I was hoping to get to before they started the broadcast, which now they're not going to do a broadcast. So, oh yeah, and you can even, I don't know if you can read it, but in my little thing there it says live in 24 hours. Yeah, they did reschedule it. So now it's going to be tomorrow. Again, 9/17, at least it says on the YouTube stream, 9/17 tomorrow. So hopefully we'll be able to try this out here again tomorrow, but we can still chat today. No launch today. How about tomorrow? Kathleen says on Facebook. Yep, that's what we're going to give it a shot for. We'll see if we can get live for tomorrow as well. Somebody says, hope to see the launch today from my front yard. Must be a West Coast viewer. Let's see. What did I miss? Anybody else's comments here? See what else is going. Payload is a Tesla truck. Yeah, I would love to see a Tesla truck go up. I think maybe that'll be the first. Maybe they'll throw that on top of the BFR instead of the crew compartment. I don't know. But yeah, no Tesla truck today going up for the payload. Paz Satellite, nice to meet you from South Korea. We got some viewers from South Korea. How about that? Happy to watch you again. Yeah, we picked up a lot of new faces here from our Falcon Heavy flight live stream, which was pretty awesome. And let's see, Tyler says hashtag Space Lobster never gets scrubbed. Well, the Space Lobster doesn't get scrubbed, but maybe the Space Lobster causes a scrub. So yeah, so we are scrubbed for today, which is unfortunate. Just trying to keep up with some of the comments here. Hey, imagine that. Hashtag Space Lobster is at it again, Jamie says on Facebook. Gail, so there's no launch today. Right, that's correct. Yeah, no launch today. They just scrubbed it just a little while ago. I got the official word that they are going to scrub it. But we will try to be live again tomorrow and see if we can get this, catch this broadcast. Because I am kind of curious. I mean, one of the things that I was interested to see is two things. One, the Starlink satellite, the secondary payload, has really been they've been pretty quiet about it because it is a secondary payload. So usually on their broadcasts they focus on the primary payload. That's generally who's paying them to fly this thing. So they usually focus on the primary payload in their webcasts, but there has been a lot of attention about the secondary payload. So I was curious to see if they were going to mention it at all during the webcast and see what they might say about it. And actually, for one of the first times today, Elon mentioned on Twitter that about the Starlink microsats. That was really one of the first official mentions of the microsat was today on Twitter by Elon. So yeah, I was curious to see if they were going to mention that, and then I'm also curious to see if they mention anything about fairing 2.0, which is what we're looking at here on the screen, to see if they, are they going to show the recovery? We've got this crazy Mr. Stephen boat, with this crazy net here that nobody's ever seen operate, and how this works. Somehow they're going to parachute this thing down and get the boat underneath it and just catch it with this net. I don't know. This seems crazy to me, but they must have it figured out. So I guess I don't need my earpiece in anymore if the launch is scrubbed. Yeah, I'm curious to see if they mention anything about that, and that's kind of what I was looking forward to today. But yeah, a lot of attention here on this Starlink constellation, which this was kind of an early concept plan here about what this Starlink constellation is going to look like, and it's going to rival the Iridium constellation, which is one of the largest satellite constellations that we have currently. But you can see, obviously, I don't think is a to scale model here, but this kind of concept mock-up here is, got a ton of satellites that are going to be orbiting, hopefully to provide someday, within another 2 or 3 or 5 years, high-speed broadband service to anywhere in the world. So let's see. Live stream says 24. Yep, we're scrubbed today. Anne Marie says, why are we scrubbed? We're scrubbed because of upper level winds. So the upper level winds, I didn't get a number from them on the scrub, but the first constraint that happened around 8:30, the upper level winds were at 101.8% of acceptable limits. So just over the acceptable limits for launching today. And it sounds, well, obviously they continued to be over 100%, and so they scrubbed today's launch, which is unfortunate. I thought for sure that they were going to go for today. It sounded like everything was good to go and on track. But one of the other things that we can talk about today as well for, I guess now tomorrow's launch, is this is a reused Falcon 9 booster. This was previously used, what was the flight that it was used on? This one was previously used, does anybody know? I had it here somewhere. I don't know. It was previously used. I don't remember which flight it was used on, but I had it here somewhere. But they will not be recovering this Falcon 9 booster. They do have the grid fins on it. Interesting. So they must be doing some sort of controlled descent, but there are no landing legs. They are not deploying. They're not deploying the autonomous spaceport drone ship to recover it. So they're just going to let it land in the Pacific Ocean and be expended. So this will be the final Block 3 booster. And after that, we're going to be doing Block 4 and Block 5 boosters. So this would be the final flight, the final Block 3 flight with this booster here. And you can tell that it's been reused. I mean, if you look at the picture here, you can see you see all the mark. I love that SpaceX doesn't repaint it. I mean, why repaint it? It costs extra money. It doesn't really affect any functionality. So they just let it go. So you can see the scorch marks and the soot and everything else that's on there. And so they just let it go, and I love that. So that was a picture of it getting rolled out to the launch pad in Vandenberg Air Force Base yesterday. I think that picture is from. So that is that's what we're flying today, or tomorrow. I should say tomorrow now. Tomorrow, scrubbed today. So they just scrubbed it a few minutes ago. About 10 minutes ago, we got the official word that they were going to scrub it. So. I do have one other picture that we didn't take a look at here yet. We kind of already talked about it. This is the PAZ satellite, sorry, that is the primary payload for today. We didn't talk too much about it, but you know, that's the let's see. What I don't want to say routine. I hate using the word routine, but it is kind of routine. It's a typical communications radar imaging satellites that they're going to be launching into polar orbit tomorrow. Scrubbed today, but they're launching it tomorrow. But it hasn't been the one that everybody's been talking about. I feel bad for the team there that developed that satellite, because everybody's focusing on the secondary payload instead, which is that broadband internet service. So Barney, hashtag Space Lobster. Leia says Space Lobster lives on. Yes, I love it. Daniel, Lobster Fest is on for tomorrow. Yeah. Yes, we'll have a Lobster Fest tomorrow. We'll try to do this again tomorrow and see if we can get another live stream. Is this Falcon 9 one of the two who landed in Falcon Heavy launch? No, this is not. This is not a Falcon Heavy booster. It would be nice if they could turn it around that fast, but they can't turn them around quite that fast. This is a previously used Falcon 9, but it is not the. It is not a booster from the Falcon Heavy launch. They did have one of the boosters from Falcon Heavy on display at the Kennedy Space Center earlier this week, and there were a ton of people that got up close videos and photos and got to stand right next to it. Basically, they had that on display earlier this week, which was pretty cool. So look at those guitars. Yeah, I got the guitars in the back. Let's see. Cool broadcast. Just found you. Yeah, thanks, John. Thanks for tuning in here today. What time tomorrow did they say? So I believe the backup here. I can tell you exactly here instead of believe. The backup launch window. Yeah, same time tomorrow. So it's tomorrow 9:17 a.m. Eastern Time, 6:17 Pacific, or 14:17 UTC. So for me on the East Coast, that's going to be 9:17 a.m. Eastern Time. And as long as we went live a little bit late today, but that's because I was waiting to see if they were going to scrub it. I was hoping to get the news on whether or not they were going to scrub it ahead of time, and then we could have rescheduled the broadcast and blah 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 blah. But didn't get it until late, so I didn't want to wait forever and keep everybody waiting. So if there's no constraints and they do launch tomorrow, then we should go live around 8:45 a.m. Eastern Time tomorrow. That's 5:45 Pacific Time. So if you're on the West Coast, wake up early. Let's have that Lobster Fest early tomorrow. All right, let's see. What else we I'm just looking through all the comments here. A whole bunch of people coming in commenting. The 2 surviving boosters from Heavy were discontinued, so they never fly again. Right, yep, that's from Luther on YouTube. Yeah, the 2 Falcon Heavy boosters, that they're not being used again. They were used for Falcon Heavy, and they're done. They're not being used again. They're going in the Hall of Fame for the first Falcon Heavy flight. So they will not be used again, and this is going to be the last use of this booster as well. This one will not be used again because they're not going to be recovering this one. They'll be expending this. There was used once previously. But I don't know. Yeah, I'm curious. Like I said earlier, I'm curious to see if this actually works out. So, what are they doing up there? Are they building a base? No, I don't think they're building a base. Not yet, at least. Maybe someday we might have a moon base or a Mars base. I think we're still a little ways away from that. So many launches in the past 6 months. Yeah, one of the cool things. That's another thing that we can't mention. One of the cool things about SpaceX is right now, they're launching at a crazy pace here, and they had the obviously Falcon Heavy. They're doing this PAS mission here. They're going to do what is the one coming up Saturday? I'm drawing a blank on it, but there's another launch on Saturday. That flight is actually on the launch pad. They just did a static fire yesterday for that. So the SpaceX team is right now currently basically operating 2 different launch sites, one on the East Coast and one on the West Coast, and they're both being fully manned and operating at least within a few hours of each other, because this one obviously is preparing for tomorrow's launch, which was today's launch. But at the same time, yesterday they were doing a static fire for the launch that's happening on the East Coast on it'll be early Sunday morning, I guess. It's like 12:30 a.m. Eastern Time Sunday morning, so super early. So we got two different launch teams and 2 different launch locations that are currently being operated by SpaceX. So that's pretty neat, and I think it's something cool to see SpaceX really ramp up their schedule and their capabilities to be able to quickly launch and quickly get up and running on 2 different locations, or even on the same location, because we just did Falcon Heavy when was that, like 2 weeks ago on the East Coast, and now here we are 2 weeks later doing a Falcon 9 launch. So it is pretty exciting to see how quickly SpaceX is able to turn over these launch sites and continue to operate. I think last year, I think the number I saw last year is they put up 17 flights for Falcon 9 last year, which is pretty awesome, considering a few years ago, one of the mission managers had said that their goal was to get about 12 flights a year. So they're actually exceeding their goal by doing 17 flights a year. And I think now they're even trying to push that even farther going forward. So yeah, it is pretty exciting to see how fast they are turning things around. So let's see. I just saw it launch. I don't think so. I think they scrubbed for today. So it'd be interesting if they launched without telling anybody. But no, I think they announced that they were standing down for today. So yeah, the launch was scrubbed for today. What happened to launch today? Yeah, scrubbed today for upper level winds. Upper level winds were at 101% of acceptable levels. So so they scrubbed for today. Not going to happen, which is unfortunate. But we'll still check it out. We'll be live here again tomorrow, and we'll check out what they've got. Let me see what the Twitterverse is saying. Let's see. Next opportunity technically tomorrow. Waiting to hear if it's a 24-hour or 48-hour turnaround. Okay, so I guess we don't officially. Oh wait, there it is. 24-hour turnaround confirmed. Next attempt tomorrow. Okay, sorry. I guess I read those out of or in order, but I should have kept reading. So for a minute there, I thought maybe there was a doubt, but no, looks like they did confirm it for tomorrow. Launch is same time tomorrow, 9:17 a.m. Eastern Time, 6:17 Pacific. Let's see. From Elon, high altitude wind shear data shows a probable 2% load exceedance. Small, but better to be paranoid. Postponing launch to tomorrow, assuming winds are better then. So that's directly from Elon on Twitter. We can even take a look at that here and throw it up on the screen, maybe. Got to get Elon's Twitter. I was looking at that on my phone here. We can take a look on Elon's Twitter here. Let's see, where is it on my screen? There we go. We don't need the music. We'll get rid of all that. All right, so that's what I was looking at here. This is Elon's Twitter feed. High altitude wind shear data shows probable 2% load exceedance. Small, but better to be paranoid. Postponing launch to tomorrow, assuming winds are better then. So that's what we're looking at. Unfortunately, no launch today. But one of the things too that we can, while we're here, is if I scroll up, I like the pretty balloons. Where are they now? This is when they were waiting for the weather balloon data to come in. But the top feed there, or the top comment that he top post, whatever I'm trying to say, was really the first official acknowledgement of the Starlink constellation. Those two Microsats. So that was kind of cool to see him actually put that out today. I thought maybe they might go through the whole broadcast and not even mention it, which would be unfortunate because everybody's kind of excited about super fast broadband. So yeah, that's unfortunate for today. So yeah, it looks like no launch happening today. So I don't have much else prepared for today because I think we talked about everything else. I guess one thing we could talk about, I was going to wait until tomorrow, but I suppose we could mention it today since we're here. This is the schedule for the flight. We didn't really talk about that, but we did get scrubbed about 20 minutes prior to the flight, which is a little bit unusual. I mean, not completely out of the ordinary, but they had already started the liquid oxygen loading. Usually once they start the RP1 and the liquid oxygen loading, it's usually pretty rare to, I shouldn't say rare, but it's less common to have a scrub at that point because they do a lot of checks ahead of time, and usually if there's something technically wrong, then you you would scrub before you actually start either the RP1 or the liquid oxygen loading. But today was for weather, so I mean that's not necessarily unusual. But they did already start the RP1 and the liquid oxygen loading, but then they scrubbed it after that. So let's see, getting a whole bunch of messages here. Oh, this is my Amazon update. So we ordered ourselves a Space Lobster. So we are going to fly, assuming I can figure out how to get this thing, attached to one of our weather balloons. We are going to fly a Space Lobster on one of our weather balloon flights this spring and summer. So make sure you're subscribed here and following along, because we're going to launch a Space Lobster. And my Amazon notice today was that it's out for delivery. So we're getting our Space Lobster. Maybe if it gets here today, I'll show it to you on the broadcast tomorrow. You see our Space Lobster that's going to actually fly on our weather balloon. So make sure you follow along here. Okay, let's see. Somebody's spamming my YouTube comments. Yep. Sorry, you got to get put in timeout because you're putting in too many comments, and I can't read all the other ones. I believe there will be a changeover of command at the ISS next month using a manned crew aboard a Soyuz. Is that right? I do believe so. I don't know 100%. I haven't really followed it too much. How do you well, I guess we'll finish on that. Yeah, I follow the ISS and the Soyuz stuff a little bit. I know for me, I get really excited about the U.S. space program. So not necessarily. I mean, I know we fly U.S. astronauts on the Soyuz, but to me, I like to see the development of SpaceX and United Launch Alliance and who else am I thinking of? Blue Origin. And just I'd like to see that kind of stuff come back to the U.S. here. So I've been following a lot of that recently. Not that I don't really have anything against non-U.S. providers. It's just exciting to me to see some of the U.S. providers start to innovate again and get back to, to me, I wasn't around for the Apollo era, but it feels a lot more like the Apollo era, where there's this excitement to going to space again and getting some of these innovative technologies that we haven't seen before. So do you have a recap of that lobster commercial? Would love to see it again. Sure, we could show that. I have to go, but I subscribed because I wanted to see the launch here. Yeah, thanks, Soul Rescue. Thanks for subscribing. Stage 2 gets deorbited after it's done. Yeah, typically they do deorbit Stage 2 just to get rid of some of the space junk. A lot of times Stage 2 gets deorbited in the Indian Ocean for well, I guess that's for East Coast launches. I don't know what they do for West Coast launches. So usually we've got the two launch facilities, the one on the East Coast and the one on the West Coast. Usually the East Coast ones are for equatorial orbits around the equator, or slightly inclined north or south from the equator. And the West Coast launch facilities are usually for either polar orbits or something that's a little closer to polar orbit, or even retrograde orbits that are going the opposite way of the spin of the Earth. Those are a little more rare because they're kind of costly. But that's usually what they use the West Coast for, is either if they're going retrograde or polar orbits, and the East Coast ones for the equatorial easterly, east, northeast, southeast type orbits. Let's see, why is the launch delayed? Yep, scrub till tomorrow due to upper level winds. They were 2% over the allowed limit. Small, but like Elon said, better to be safe than sorry. So yeah, so those high upper level winds, and this is why we do the whole thing. But those upper level winds, they are measured by weather balloons. So they get the multiple weather balloons flown as they're preparing for the flight. They get all that data. The weather balloon data is what's measuring those upper level winds. We've got tons of satellites and things like that, but really weather balloons are still the primary method for measuring those upper level winds. And we do it not just for rocket flights, but the National Weather Service still does 75,000 weather balloon flights every year. And that's one of the primary forecast model inputs for developing our forecasts, and that's 75,000 just here in the U.S. They do, hundreds of thousands worldwide. So these weather balloon flights are going up usually twice a day from an airport or weather station that's somewhere nearby. For us, the closest one is in Buffalo, New York. We've been there. We've helped them launch before. So they do weather balloon flights there. I'm sure there's an airport somewhere near you. Usually they're airports. Sometimes they're standalone weather stations. But a lot, in kind of the common areas, it's usually an airport, usually an international airport, has a National Weather Service upper air observatory that they launch these weather balloons from. And that's still, like I said, still one of the primary methods for getting those upper level wind measurements. So tomorrow we'll check this out again. That will be 8:45 Eastern time. We'll start. It's 5:45 Pacific time. That's what time we'll get started tomorrow. But we should have a 9:17 Eastern, 6:17 Pacific launch time for tomorrow. Yeah, launch covers the South Pacific. Yeah, so today's launch is going, or tomorrow, I say today, tomorrow, because it got scrubbed today. Tomorrow's launch is going south. It's going to be a polar orbit. Sure, I understand your feeling about U.S. space operations. What do you think SpaceX's major success with Falcon Heavy means for space travel beyond Earth's orbit in the coming years? Yeah, so I think one of the really exciting things about Falcon Heavy is going to sound silly. One of the exciting things about Falcon Heavy is that it was exciting, and that's a huge benefit to the space industry in general, to get the public interested and get people excited about space. And that was kind of one of the primary reasons that SpaceX really put their Tesla Roadster into space. Because on a typical rocket launch, anytime in the past you get one of these new rockets, you're not going to put a satellite on board, and you don't want to risk an expensive satellite for something that might blow up 6 inches off the pad. But having the Tesla Roadster, which is basically a throwaway payload, they would normally put just a block of concrete or a hunk of steel, and they just throw it into space and say, like, yeah, we launched X amount of pounds or tons to orbit. Yahoo! But this was exciting. We had a Tesla Roadster that streamed live footage from cameras, and you saw this car in space with the Earth as the backdrop. It was crazy, and it just got people excited. One of the biggest indicators of that really is that the SpaceX live stream, just SpaceX, there was live stream. We did a live stream. Everyday Astronaut did a live stream. CNN and News, ABC, and all these news sources, everybody did live streams. But just the SpaceX live stream got something like 20 million viewers, which was crazy for a rocket launch. It just doesn't happen that much. So there's a lot of excitement from that Falcon Heavy launch, and seeing that excitement helps drives people's interest in seeing further space exploration. Maybe we go back to the moon, maybe we get people to Mars. Whether it's, I don't think it's going to happen with Falcon Heavy, but Falcon Heavy is kind of the stepping stone to get there, because it looks, it sounds like they're going to focus on the BFR, the Big Falcon rocket, to get to, to do actual crewed missions. But yeah, that's, I don't know, I'm excited about all these opportunities and getting the costs lower. All this reusability stuff that they're focusing on is pretty exciting as well, because you have to, to make space more accessible, you got to get the costs down. And I think they're being really creative with all the ways that they're lowering this cost so that they can, generate more interest, especially as a private company. They have to make a profit, and so they're trying to I think they really use a lot of the satellite launches to fund their developments. But they're being innovative, and I love that. I mean, look at this boat. This thing is crazy. This is the Mr. Steven boat with this net on it that's going to catch the payload fairing after it descends by parachute. I don't understand. Well, I mean, I understand it, but It seems like something you sit in a boardroom and you're like, yeah, let's just put a boat out there with a net and we'll catch it. And then everybody laughs and says, yeah, right. But this is real life. This is what they're actually going to do, which is crazy. Crazy to see. I would love to see live footage of this, of the fair. This is a concept mock-up. This is not actually a real mock-up, but this is a concept of the payload fairing coming down by parachute. And, you know, it's going to be caught by that Mr. Steven boat. That's crazy to me. So, are these fairings new? Yeah, this is fairing 2.0, so a little bit larger. These are, yeah, they're pricey fairing, payload fairings, but yeah, the one on the right, the one that says PAS there, I guess it's this way. The one that says PAS there, that's the new one. I don't know if you can read that. There are different dimensions. I don't know. I can't read it, but there are dimensions on there that kind of outline the increased size. The old payload fairing was like 5.1 meters, and the new one is like 5.2 or 5.3 meters, I think is what it is. So a little bit larger. Let's see. I wondered that also, I don't know why he didn't put a couple panels under the roadster chassis. I'm assuming, Luther, you're talking about solar panels. Because a lot of people asked about that, like why didn't he put solar panels on there to let the cameras run longer? And I don't think they expected it to succeed as well as it did. I mean, if you listen to Elon's news or his interview afterwards, he had visions in his head of this thing just explode. I mean, I laughed when he said it, but he had a vision of this thing just exploding in a blaze of glory at liftoff. The whole thing goes up in flames, and just seeing like a wheel from the Tesla bouncing down the road. You know, that was his vision. I don't know. I mean, you know, obviously you do everything you can and you want it to succeed, but, you know, I don't think they necessarily had super high hopes that it would succeed perfectly like it really almost did, other than the center core, which got taken out by the hashtag Space Lobster. But I mean, other than that, they had pretty much a perfect launch for Falcon Heavy, which is kind of crazy. So, has there been a cost analysis recovering and refurbishing fairings compared to just building new? I haven't seen a cost analysis of it, but these fairings are pretty expensive. I think they're $6 million for those fairings, which is, you know, expensive for, you know, the everyday person. But yeah, I'd be interested to see what the cost analysis would be, because $6 million, you got to figure. So Mr. Steven's going to go out, you know, now that this payload fairing has got to have a parachute on it, which is going to be, you know, pricey parachute. And Mr. Steven's got to go out with a crew and try to catch this thing. And you got to pay the crew and pay the recovery efforts and bring it back in. So there's some cost to that as well. But I imagine somebody has done a cost analysis and said, like, hey, we got these $6 million payload fairings and it costs us X amount of dollars to go get it. We probably should just go get it and bring it back. So those fairings are huge too. Yeah, they're massive. This picture really doesn't do it justice, but yeah, those payload fairings are huge. So, Kevin, he was tripping balls. Yeah, that was a great comment. I did like that, Kevin. So, seems cost of the boat, operation, need to retrofit, along with insurance, the whole operation, be really expensive. Yeah, I'm sure there's definitely some expense to that. But obviously, I would think that somebody did the analysis there and found that it was beneficial to bring these home. So let's see. Thanks SpaceX for bringing space exploration back to the national psyche. I wish I was a kid during the moon launches, and that level of excitement is needed for the future of this country. That's from Paul on Facebook. Yeah, Paul, I couldn't agree more with you. You know, I think that's, you know, the future of space exploration depends a lot on the excitement level. I mean, you look at the Apollo missions, and we were doing great things with the Apollo flights, and then it just got routine and nobody was excited about it anymore, and so they scrubbed the rest of the program. And there was so much still to do, and there's still so much to do today, which is why people are still wanting us to go back to the moon. You know, I definitely think I think the excitement level needs to be kept up in order to continue to push space exploration. You know, all these innovations that we're seeing and reusability, it's fun to see. And I love that that SpaceX does these live broadcasts and things like that, because it does up the excitement level. You know, they could, as a private company, they could just launch their rockets and not televise them and say like, "Hey, we did this, thanks." But that wouldn't bring up the excitement level. So let's see. Oh, I lost my comments. Hashtag Space Lobster, thanks for the answer. What are the chances we see a return to the moon in our lifetime? And would it be possible to operate a satellite or beacon monitor planted on the moon? I don't know, maybe it's wishful thinking. I think we will see a return to the moon in our lifetime. I think we're going to see a crewed mission to Mars. I think we're going to see a return to the moon. I think we're going to see even a crewed mission to an asteroid, at least in my lifetime. Maybe that's wishful thinking, but I think it's possible. I would love to see it. I think we really do have to start branching out. It doesn't necessarily have to be crewed missions, but I do think that having crewed missions does increase that excitement level that we were talking about. Also increases the danger level as well. You know, I don't want to be the first person on the spaceship to Mars, but I'm sure there's people out there that will gladly sign up for that. So, Space Shuttle put our space program almost to a halt since the cost to maintain the shuttle was almost NASA's entire budget. Yeah, you know what? I have to agree. I mean, the space shuttle was a cool concept, and it was a nice thing to explore. I don't think it was a great decision for us to move to that sort of model. Sounded great in theory to do this whole space shuttle, you know, with the space plane with wings that could come back down and land, but the cost and the safety factor, you know, we just passed like the Columbia and the Challenger anniversaries just a couple weeks ago, and you know, having like that exposed heat shield and the cost of that whole program is like $1.3 billion with a B for every single space shuttle launch. And it did really, it brought a lot of our space program to a halt. I mean, it did do some cool things, but it never reached the potential that I think NASA thought it would reach. Because I don't remember what the number was, but they wanted to do, you know, basically one launch every week of these of the space shuttles, and they never got to that sort of level. So they, you know, in retrospect, I don't know if the space shuttle was a great stepping stone for us, but it was still a cool vehicle. You know, nice. I'm sure there's a lot of innovation that we got out of it. So it wasn't a complete loss, but you know, it does make you wonder if we had continued with the Apollo program or a similar type vehicle that was on top of the rocket and not these, you know, not like the Buran or the space shuttle. If we had continued with the Apollo style rockets, you know, would we be further along? I don't know. Hard to say. Let's see. What else do we have? What are your thoughts on Neil Armstrong saying we haven't went back to the moon because they were not alone up there and others had much bigger ships? I have not seen that personally. I don't think Neil Armstrong saw anybody up at the moon, if that's what you're asking. I mean, I think we will go back to the moon. I don't think we have critters on the dark side of the moon, but I think we'll go back there at some point. I think it was just the cost that was expensive. It was the cost, and at the time, and somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, because I obviously I wasn't around during this time, but from what I've read, the concept of, you know, getting to this, you know, reusability in space has always been something that they've tried to go for. And so I think the space shuttle program was really this kind of twinkle in their eye that they wanted to have this reusability so they could bring the cost down. Turns out it didn't really bring the cost down. It was very expensive at $1.3 billion per launch. So let's see. I agree. I think we have a homegrown space race already with NASA, SpaceX. Fingers crossed Elon wins. Yeah, I think we do have it is a little bit of a homegrown space race. And you kind of left out a couple there too. You got NASA, you got SpaceX, You got United Launch Alliance. You got Blue Origin. Don't forget about Blue Origin. They're kind of sitting back in the background. They're a little bit quiet. That's Jeff Bezos, the Amazon guy. That's his company. And Blue Origin is they're building crewed ships that they're intending to launch as well. So don't forget about them. But yeah, we do have a little bit of a homegrown space race for sure. Jay, what time is the launch? It's happening tomorrow. So if you missed earlier, oh, we got a whole bunch of comments I missed here. Gary says I'll go to Mars. Yeah, see, Gary, I'm not going to be the first to go to Mars, but you could sign up and be first. Somebody's got to be first. I don't think it'll be me. What was I saying? I lost my train of thought. Oh, what time is launch? Somebody asked about that. Yeah, so if you missed earlier, launch is scrubbed for today. It was supposed to be half an hour ago, but it's scrubbed for today. They're launching tomorrow at same time, 9:17 Eastern, 6:17 Pacific. So no launch today. Scrubbed for upper level winds. They exceeded the safe parameters by 2%. Just 2%, small, but got to be safe. So tomorrow is going to be the launch. Shuttle planted the idea of reusability. That was enough. Yeah, I definitely think. I think the idea of reusability was around, before the shuttle. But yeah, I think the shuttle definitely bolstered that idea, or propped it up a little more that it could be done. So I definitely think we got some stuff out of the space shuttle program. I think. And in retrospect, if I were to, you get your own space government game or something like that, probably the space shuttle program is a good step to have in there. It might have been nice to cut that step a little shorter, because you think about it, the space shuttle program went from 1981 to 2011. That's a long time period of using that same launch vehicle, with really not much in the realm of major innovations there. I mean, the nice thing is that it was pretty reliable, with the exception of a couple of bad incidents. But yeah, they did get some reusability out of it, and I think it did help with the idea of pushing companies like SpaceX and Blue Origin and into this reusability model here. So let's see. We should have a moon base right now. What is humanity doing? Yeah, I think someday we'll definitely have a moon base. You realize Dyson is starting an electric car company and probably into space later. Is that so? I didn't know. It'd be interesting to see Dyson get into the homegrown space race here. I don't know anything about that, but NASA and SpaceX are like the USA versus USSR 60 years later. Yeah, a little bit, but NASA and SpaceX are not necessarily direct competitors either, because NASA is actively helping SpaceX and trying to push them along as well. Because for NASA, if NASA can get away from the routine satellite launches and push those on to private contractors like SpaceX or Blue Origin, then NASA can take its budget and focus it really on exploration and the missions that don't have a profit to them, like sending probes to Mars or Jupiter's moons or things like that really have no profit to them, but those are the things that need to be government funded, because it's a benefit to humanity, but not necessarily a corporate benefit. And so if NASA can push the routine profitable satellite launches for these private companies off to SpaceX and Blue Origin, then they can focus on the exploration stuff. So I think you'll definitely see a place for both groups there, government funded and private funded. The space, to me, the homegrown space race is has a lot to do with the private space companies, SpaceX, United Launch Alliance, Blue Origin, these companies that are really competing towards getting those satellite launches, and they really have to innovate to to bring their costs down as much as possible so that they can continue to get business. So John says, hello from Ohio. Good to see Ohio here. I disagree. The future will require shuttles. The problem with the past shuttle is that they were using it for everything. Shuttle should be only used to shuttle people. It would be smaller and more efficient. Yeah, sure, I can buy it. That's from William on Facebook. I can definitely buy that. Yeah, they definitely were. They were using the shuttle. Yeah, they were using it for everything. You know, satellite launches, service missions, things like that. Yeah, I think you'll see some sort of. Well, just look at BFR. BFR is kind of a shuttle, in the sense that it's trying to be 100% reusable. And I mean, whether you call it a shuttle or whatever it is, I mean, I think the idea of having a crewed capsule that can be 100% reusable and quickly reusable is really going to be the key to continuing our space ventures. So that's Gary. That's okay. I'll bring you a Mars rock. Perfect. I'm gonna hold you to that, Gary. You bring me back you can be the first person to Mars as long as you bring me a Mars rock. I'll call my buddy Elon. Tell him you're in. Let's see. What time is it launching? Frank, yeah, no launch today. Tomorrow, 9:17 a.m. Eastern Time, 6:17 Pacific. NASA let me try that again. NASA should scrap the SLS program. $1 billion per launch. OMG, we could get 10 launches on Falcon Heavy. Yeah, I think. Well, the SLS, I think, still has a place, but yeah, they do have to get the costs down, because there's definitely a place for SLS if the cost is right, so that we can do these super far exploration missions. If we're going to be sending large probes to Mars or Jupiter's moons or things like that, we're still going to need a very heavy lift vehicle to do that. If they're pushing all the profits onto corporate entities, won't that make it harder to garner funds for the exploration missions? Yeah, I mean, well, NASA is a government organization, not necessarily intended to make a profit. It's supposed to be to better humanity. So I think they still have to be exciting. They still have to justify their costs so that the government is funding them. So I think it's still there, but I don't think if they're not making a profit, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing for NASA. Where will they be launched from? Cape Canaveral? That's from Lopez on Facebook. I'm not sure what you're referring to. What will be launched from? Tomorrow's launch is from Vandenberg. That's on the West Coast. I'm not sure if you were referring to one of the other vehicles that we were talking about there for a little while. So let's see. Did we miss anything else? Less talk, more rock. I don't know what that means, but I don't have. All I got is talk. I don't have rocks. So let me see. No launch today. Yep, that's right. No launch today, Gary. Yeah, it was scrubbed about an hour ago now. They scrubbed it due to upper level winds. So it's not happening today. Upper level winds were at 102% of their acceptable levels, so it'll be tomorrow morning, same time. Falcon Heavy is only 30% more expensive versus a normal Falcon 9 launch. You could probably get a lot more launches than just 10 for $1 billion. Yeah, so the Falcon, I've actually even got a graphic for that. Hey, look at this. Good segue. Here we go. Since we're talking about cost and everything else, yeah, the Falcon Heavy, one of the unique things about Falcon Heavy is that, it's not that much more expensive than the Falcon 9. Really, the extra expense, a lot of it is fuel, a little bit of operations, but in terms of reusability, they're only disposing of exactly the same amount of material that they are in a Falcon 9. So just that upper stage and well, the payload fairing, if they can recover it, they'll get those back on both types of launches. But really, it's just the upper stage right now that they're losing on whether it's Falcon 9 or Falcon Heavy, because Falcon Heavy is getting both boosters back, they're getting the center core back, and the Falcon 9 is getting the first stage back as well. So yeah, you're looking at 62 million versus 90 million, which in the grand scheme of things is not a huge difference cost-wise for Falcon Heavy versus Falcon 9. So I think it really, Falcon Heavy is definitely going to be a huge improvement for SpaceX to do a lot of these heavy lift satellites, to either get them out to geostationary orbit, or who knows what they're gonna be providing. I think you're going to see a lot of corporate platforms and satellites and things like that on these, or I guess corporate, it could be government as well, because NASA may contract with them, or I think I've heard that NASA has contracted with them for some launches on Falcon Heavy. I believe after the Falcon Heavy launch that it got certified for national security launches. So yeah, there's definitely a benefit there as well. Let's see, switch it back. So come back to here. About the asteroid mission you mentioned, could that be done unmanned with a drone, and would that be a mining operation if we manage to latch onto one? I think you'll see people try. I bet you'll probably see an unmanned flight to an asteroid first. I mean, similar to what we did, I forget what the name of the satellite was, but we did have a, what was it, like Rosetta? Was that the satellite that had an asteroid encounter, landed a probe there, was supposed to send back information? I think that's kind of the first step there, and we'll see more of those coming soon. Hopefully, I'd like to see it. I was reading the other day about the new Mars lander, that's Mars 2020 lander, that's or rover, that's coming up in 2020, Mars 2020. I don't think that's the official name of it. I think that's just what people are calling it right now, because it doesn't have an official name. But the Mars 2020 rover is coming up. Yes, the Rosetta mission. Okay, thank you. Yep, I thought that's what it was, the Rosetta mission. So yeah, we had wow, we got into a lot of philosophical space talk there, and the future of space. Well, yeah, I guess I don't know if we want to go. I don't know how much more we want to go into some of this. Let me take a look at the Twitter machine, see if I missed anything on here. Oh, somebody sent me. This is Kevin. I guess this is the Neil Armstrong interview that you were talking about, that Neil said that they saw things. The real reason NASA refuses to return to the moon. Yeah, I guess, well, I'll read this. I don't know how much I believe this, but I'll take a look at it. We'll see. I mean, it basically says that the real reason we're not going back to the moon is because we were warned off, and it's top secret. I mean, I guess anything's possible, but I don't know. I don't know if I buy into that. At least not at this point. Let's see. What else did we? All right, well, yeah, I think running out of stuff to chat about here today. So we'll probably end it here soon. Let me see, just trying to see if I missed any more comments. Yeah, so I think, well, I appreciate everybody joining in and tuning in today, even though we didn't have a launch. So, yeah, like I said, scrubbed for today. We're going to be launching tomorrow instead, 9:17 a.m. Eastern Time, 6:17 Pacific. We'll try to go live again tomorrow morning and see if we can pick this up and actually see the launch this time. So these things happen with rocket launches. You got to be safe. So so scrubbed for today. And like I said earlier, in case you missed it, you know, there was no opportunity to hold today. Since it's a polar orbit, they have an instantaneous launch window. They have to launch right at that moment. If they can't, it's scrubbed. So no opportunity to hold or move or try again because of those upper level winds. And the upper level winds is what scrubbed us today. So paz means peace. Yeah, I've heard. Yep, heard that as well. I think paz means peace in Spanish, right? Is that right? So that's why it's that's where we get the name today. I don't believe it because there were several more missions to the moon after Armstrong's landing. Yeah, so that's what Jason said. So Jason's talking about the Neil Armstrong thing. Yeah, we did have a lot of missions to the moon after Neil Armstrong had landed, and you know, presumably if Neil Armstrong had landed and we got greeted by a whole bunch of critters that were like, no, stay off our moon, then we probably wouldn't have sent anybody back. But we did send a lot more missions back. So interviews do load on. I can't wait to hear your thoughts. Yeah, I'll take a look at the article. It's always an interesting read. I'll read just about anything that piques my interest. So yeah. So anyways, I guess I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't say make sure you subscribe. If you're following us on YouTube, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Make sure you hit that like button on Facebook. Share it with your friends. That's what we do. We're a nonprofit group here, so so we're using this to fund our flights, which are coming up this spring. So follow along with us. We do have some flights coming up this spring. We're eagerly awaiting those. I've been checking the weather. We're trying to get one up and running soon, so you'll see our flights coming up here in the next couple of weeks. We're looking at probably March. We're going to start getting our first ones up in the air. So make sure you subscribe, like the page, share it with your friends, because that's really how we can we continue to operate this. And we're trying to get students, teachers, even adults interested in science and technology. Get them excited, like I mentioned earlier, the excitement factor. Get them excited in space and technology, and even if space isn't your thing, get them into technology or Arduinos or software programming or any of that kind of stuff. So share our page, share our YouTube channel with your friends. Make sure you hit the like and subscribe button. And if you're really feeling generous, because we are a 501c3 nonprofit charitable organization, you can always make a donation at overlookhorizon.com/donate. All donations made to our group are 100% tax deductible in the United States because we are a 501c3 nonprofit charitable organization. So we do this, like I said, we want to get kids, students, even adults interested in the science, the technology, and get people excited again about space and like I said, tech stuff, Arduinos, Raspberry Pis, whatever piques your interest. So let's see. Hashtag Space Lobster. Never forget the core booster. Yep. Yeah, the Space Lobster took out our center core last time, but yeah, I love to see the Space Lobster still going strong. And let's see. I'm sorry, I'm trying to read and talk at the same time. Launch today or not today? No launch today. Scrub today. It's going to be tomorrow, same time. 9:17 a.m. Eastern Time. RIP Core Booster. Hashtag Space Lobster. You guys ever come out to Arizona for flights? We have not. All our flights to date have been here in New York, but we are trying to expand the program. We're still we're only 2 years into our program here, so we are trying to expand and get this out further. So I think someday actually would love to launch a weather balloon flight in Arizona. A lot more space in Arizona. Here in Rochester, we got to deal with the Finger Lakes and Syracuse and Albany, and we also got some mountainous regions. It can be a nightmare for recovery. So Arizona actually sounds a whole lot better for weather balloon recovery, which is usually the hardest part, is getting it back. So usually we cross our fingers and hope that we land in a big field, but every once in a while you hit trees or lakes and all kinds of Arizona just sounds like it'd be a lot smoother sailing. So maybe someday we'll get out there. All right. Well, I'm gonna have to let this one go and end this. RIT Core Booster. Never forget, hashtag Space Lobster. Definitely make sure you subscribe. Something. What am I trying to say? Follow us on Twitter as well. If you get one of these, if you're good at Photoshop, one of the things that I absolutely loved last time was the number of Space Lobster pictures that got sent to me on Twitter last time. So for those Photoshop people, send me some more creative Space Lobster pictures, because I was just dying for like an hour after our broadcast was done. I was looking at all these Space Lobster pictures. It was just, it got to me. So anyways, yeah, that's a great thing. Glad you're doing the 501c3 thing. Yeah, it's yeah, for us, I mean, we like doing it. We love the excitement. We're not trying to make any money off of it, so the 501c3 thing just made sense. I mean, obviously there's expenses and there's costs to get our balloons up and get all the materials and things like that. But you know, we're not trying to make a profit off of this, and just trying to share it, get people interested. We help school groups all the time get either launch their own flights, or they can launch experiments on our flights. They can send us little, we call them balloon sats or student sats. They can send us experiments and we'll fly them on one of our flights as well. So yeah. Anyways, get that Red Lobster sponsorship. I'm still working on a Red Lobster sponsorship. I'd love to see that. And tomorrow, maybe, if it gets delivered today, I'm looking out my front door to see if it got delivered yet. No, it's not here yet. If it gets delivered today, I have the Space Lobster that we'll be launching on one of our weather balloon flights this summer. I don't know which one yet, but we're launching a Space Lobster. You just had to, right? So, anyways, all right. Well, we'll probably have to end this thing here since we don't have much else. Going on without a launch today. We'll try again tomorrow, 8:45 a.m. Eastern Time. Come hang out with us. We'll have some fun. We'll chat it up. We talked about a whole bunch of things today. I'm super excited that everybody joined us today, even though we didn't have a launch, which is pretty awesome. So thanks everybody for hanging out today. Appreciate it. Yeah, we'll see you guys all tomorrow, and hopefully we have a launch for tomorrow, because I won't be able to do a Friday broadcast. So hopefully it goes tomorrow and they don't scrub again. So. All right. Well, appreciate it, everybody. Thanks again, and we'll see you tomorrow. Have a good day.